But if you dig deeper into the story, including Culp family documents, you find the only thing in that story that's true is that Wesley Culp was killed here. Hi, I'm Tom McMillan, a historian with Gettysburg History. We are here on the historic Culp farm in the shadow of Culp's Hill to talk about one of the most intriguing figures in the Battle of Gettysburg, Wesley Culp. Former resident of this town, Confederate soldier in the Battle of Gettysburg, a foreign invader in his own town, and killed here at the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, Wesley's death has been the stuff of legend over the years, and the way it's often been told really tugs at people's heartstrings. It says that he was killed on July 3rd on Culp's Hill on land owned by his uncle. But if you dig deeper into the story, including Culp family documents, you find the only thing in that story that's true is that Wesley Culp was killed here. It says he was killed on July 2nd on or near Wolf Hill, not Culp's Hill. And the land was not owned by his uncle. It was by a far more distant relative, his father's first cousin. But he would have known this land. He would have played around here, been very familiar with this territory. We're going to talk in a little bit at a different site about how and why Wesley got to Shepherdstown, Virginia to join the Confederate Army. But right now we're going to talk about his experience, as much as we know it, at the Battle of Gettysburg. Wesley, when he went to Shepherdstown, joined a militia unit. They were absorbed into the Confederate Army as Company B of the 2nd Virginia Regiment. In the Gettysburg campaign, they were part of the Stonewall Brigade, commanded by James Walker in Edward Johnson's division of Richard Ewell's Corps. And one of Johnson's division's assignments coming north in the campaign, they didn't know they were coming to Gettysburg, was in mid-June to clear out a Union garrison in Winchester, Virginia. We often hear that the Civil War was a battle of brother versus brother. At Winchester in June of 1863, it really was brother versus brother. Wesley Culp of the 2nd Virginia fought against William Culp, his brother of the 87th Pennsylvania. Other Gettysburg men in the 87th were his good boyhood friend Jack Skelly and his cousin Billy Holdsworth. The Confederates got the better of the action that day, took many prisoners. Later that day, as they're parading the prisoners through town, Wesley sees a familiar face. He sees his cousin, Billy Holdsworth. "Billy, prisoner are you? Anything I can do for you?" And Holdsworth says, "No, I'm fine, Wes, but Jack Skelly's wounded. He's over near the edge of the woods." Culp rushes to the aid of his friend, even though they're in different armies, finds him on the edge of the woods and takes him into town for treatment. They have a conversation. It would end up being their last conversation. And during that conversation, Jack Skelly gives Wes a verbal message should he ever make it back to Gettysburg, a message for his mother, Elizabeth Skelly. The legend is that the message was for Jenny Wade, but none of the Culp family documents say that. They say Elizabeth Skelly, so that's the story that I believe. That was going to be the message that Wes delivered if he ever got to Gettysburg. They do get to Gettysburg, of course. His unit comes in on the night of July 1st, 1863. They missed the first day's fighting. They come through the town square. One of the members of the regiment writes an account that they came through the town square, said none of the residents of town were there to greet Wes Culp on his homecoming. They knew he was coming home in his unit. They go up on the Hanover Road. They camp that night on or near the Daniel Lady farm. And Wes decides he wants to go into town to visit his sisters. He's going to visit his sisters during the battle. He asks his commander, James Walker, for a pass. Walker's going to give it to him, but he says, "Wes, you know, if you're uncomfortable, if you don't want to fight here in your old hometown, I understand that. You can sit it out." And Culp says, "No, I'll do this. I'm happy to do my duty as a soldier. I just want to go see my sisters." So he gets that pass. He walks into town. It's dark. It had to be terrifying. I mean, the Confederates control the town, but it's a Union town. People have guns. They weren't really happy that Wesley Culp was a traitor fighting against the Union. So he was risking some things by doing this. Where did he go? The Culp sisters, Anne and Julia, lived in a rented property on West Middle Street. So we don't have property records as to exactly where that was. But it's said that they lived across the street from the Skelly family, across the street from Elizabeth Skelly. Her home, although it's not historic today, it's on the site of 47 West Middle. So somewhere right across the street is where Wesley Culp encountered his sister, somewhere in that block. Imagine the Culp sisters. The noise of war, the blood and destruction has come to their town that day. It had to be terrifying for them. Now there's a rap at the door and a soldier in a Confederate uniform is there. They open the door and it's their brother, Everything is dropped, hugs and kisses. They hadn't seen each other for 2 years. Bring him in. His sister Julia criticized him a bit for shooting at his brother William at Winchester. William must have been home and told him a little of the story before he got out of there. Wes said it was dark. I didn't know. Sorry about that. Again, they're catching up after 2 years. And Wes does say that he has a message he's going to deliver to Mrs. Skelly, but he'll do it the next day. He's about to leave later that night. The sisters say, Wes, can you stay? We might never see you again. Obviously, he has to leave, go back to his unit. Early the next morning, July 2nd, Wes and Company B are assigned to skirmish duty near Wolf Hill, up on what was the Ephraim Deardorff farm. It's on Montclair Road today. That's about the closest place we can pinpoint that action. They skirmished against the 9th Massachusetts and the 27th Indiana. And Wesley Culp was shot in the head, killed instantly early that morning during that brief battle that rarely is talked about. How did the family find out? Well, 2 days later, on the night of July 3rd, after Pickett's charge, after the battle has effectively ended, but the Confederates are still here, one of Wes's friends from his unit, who knew the Culp sisters from their many visits to Shepherdstown before the war, finds their house to deliver the news that their brother has been killed. And he tells the sisters he was killed on the morning of July 2nd on the skirmish line. But the mistake here is that he says he thinks it was on Culp's Hill. Remember, the Confederates had never been here before. They don't know the terrain. Everything was described as Culp's Hill. Lots of things were misidentified. We know that on July 2nd, and on that morning, the 2nd Virginia was not fighting on Culp's Hill. So that couldn't have been true. It was a mistake in delivering the message to the Culp sisters. Nonetheless, a few days later, they go out to look for his body because the soldier said Wes was buried where he fell. They never find the body. They do find a broken gun stock that he obviously had used. It was carved with the letters W. Culp. Okay, if Wes wasn't there, how did his gun get there? My theory, we'll never know. My theory is that Wes was the only man from his unit killed in the Battle of Gettysburg. Given their lack of equipment, there's no way the Confederates are leaving a functional musket laying on the ground. I think somebody picked it up. They were fighting on or near Culp's Hill on July 3rd, and how it got broken, I don't know, but I think someone picked it up. It was used there. That's why they found the gun stock, but never his body. We have no idea where he was buried. The Culp family has always denied rumors that they secretly buried him at Evergreen Cemetery or somewhere else for fear that his body would be desecrated. There's no reason after many decades to lie about that, so we simply don't know. There is a memorial stone for him down in Richmond, but there's no record that he was buried there, obviously. And the best that we can believe is he probably was somewhere under Route 15 up near Montclair Road. That's all we know. Now we're going to head into town to show you a site where they had a big impact on Wesley Culp going to Virginia. We are here at the last remaining building of the C.W. Hoffman Carriage Complex on Chambersburg Street. This would have been a bustling place in the 1850s. Why are we here? Because C.W. Hoffman was the employer who took Wesley Culp to Shepherdstown, Virginia. Part of this story, how Wesley Culp ended up becoming a Confederate soldier. But C.W., Charles William Hoffman, wasn't just a carriage shop owner. He was one of the most prominent citizens of Gettysburg in the 1850s. He owned multiple businesses. He owned at least 10 pieces of property. He had been elected 3 times to Gettysburg Borough Council. He was a trustee of the Methodist Episcopal Church. He also was on the local temperance committee at the state temperance convention, meaning he would not have been happy that the Gary Owen Irish pub is across the street from his property today. But C.W. was a very powerful man in local Gettysburg politics and business. Why did he leave? Why did such a successful businessman leave? No one really knew. No one could find through history. But Methodist church records, and if you want to fall asleep one time, go through Methodist church records from the 1850s, show that he actually was disciplined for getting into a fight in town with sticks and clubs with another carriage shop owner. We think he was humiliated, he was arrested, he was fined, he was disciplined by both city council and his church, and 1 year later, he pulls up stakes and leaves this bustling operation for Shepherdstown, Virginia. Along the way, he took Wesley Culp. Wesley's brother William also worked for C.W. William Culp was starting a family here. Wesley said, "I'm single, I'll go." Along with them went C.W.'s 3 sons, Robert, Frank, and Wesley, all born in Gettysburg, all raised on this second block of Chambersburg Street, all of whom also became Confederate soldiers and were part of Robert E. Lee's Gettysburg campaign. 4 of the Gettysburg rebels. So Wesley goes to Shepherdstown. He and Robert, who were about the same age, join a local militia unit. And in 1861, that unit enlisted en masse, became Company B of the 2nd Virginia. So C.W. Hoffman, not very well known in modern Gettysburg history, was a key factor in the Wesley Culp story and leading 4 Confederate soldiers to the Confederate Army.